Welcome to the week of April 13th for management accounting. I hope you're staying safe and have an opportunity to look out for the welfare of your family, friends, and neighbors. I know together we'll get through this. I want to reiterate, if you have any questions or problems about this course materials or anything else related to MCPHS University, please email me. I'll do everything I can to support you. So this week, we're going to look at the third part of the planning and control process. So we started by looking at budgeting, and then we looked at flexible budgeting and the balanced scorecard. This week, we're going to look at responsibility accounting and something called the open book management. So I've posted content regarding responsibility accounting and open book management, giving you a brief description of each of these. Responsibility accounting basically is the idea of breaking up the organization into segments and creating reports that people are responsible for. So sometimes that can be just expenses. Those are called cost centers. Sometimes they can be revenue and expenses. That can be called a profit center. And sometimes it could just be a revenue center, and sometimes it can include also assets, and that would be called an investment center. The objective is to basically align the budget and reporting to areas where people have control or responsibility. And the other topic for the week is open book management. And this is a concept that's been around now for about 30 years or so. And the idea here is that we're going to train all employees on how to understand financial information and then give them access to financial information and help them connect their activities to financial information so that everybody is invested in the process of trying to improve the financial results of the organization. So I'll briefly go through some of the materials I've posted in each of these categories. And after you've completed the review of all the materials I've posted, I'd like you to do the graded assignment and then participate in the discussion board assignment. So the graded assignment is on the responsibility center, and the discussion board is on open book management, which is also called the great game of business. So one of the key things about responsibility accounting is the idea that we're going to delegate or decentralize responsibility to individuals below the senior management level. So in contrast to that, if we had a centralized organization, top management would basically have control of everything, and there would not be a lot of responsibility or decision-making filtering down to lower levels of organizations. But under responsibility accounting, it's more of a decentralized approach. And so to accomplish that, we have to do is segment the organization into its appropriate categories and then provide the budgeting and reporting that's aligned with that. So, and the advantages of this decentralized approach is it helps to promote better decision making because people are closer to the problems and the issues. It hopefully improves productivity by having people feel more motivated and committed to the results that they have some responsibility and control over. It helps in management development, and also it allows freedom for senior level managers to focus on longer term and strategic issues. So when we talk about responsibility accounting or responsibility reports, what we're talking about is we prepare segments for people who have control over expenses, over revenue, over a combination of expenses and revenue. And we call those either cost center, revenue centers, profit centers, or if they also have asset responsibility, investment centers. And what we do is prepare budgets for each responsibility center, and then we can measure the performance of each responsibility center as the actuals come in, and we compare it to budget. And what's important is that we have the infrastructure, the technology to capture it and report it on a timely basis so that the responsible individuals, the responsible manager can see information on a timely basis and then react to it in the appropriate fashion. So the controllability concept is that I'm going to make you responsible for things that you have control over. So for example, the president, board of directors have control and responsible for everything. So they're going to see the big picture. But if I'm a vice president of finance, then I may have a responsibility for the expenses within my department. If I'm the vice president of sales and marketing, then I might have responsibility for sales. If I'm a department manager within operations, then I want information about my particular department, which might be a very small subset of the overall operation, but nevertheless, something I have control and responsibility for. So if I can have a budget and I can report my actuals against it, then I can take the appropriate action. So the term management by exception is that we don't want to look at every difference between actuals and budget. We want to look at things that are significant and controllable. And so department managers are going to look at levels of detail that are much smaller than the store manager or certainly than senior management would. But because they have control and understand it at that level, they can take much more effective action. So when we talk about creating helpful reports, we want them to be timely, to be issued at a regular interval, understandable, and would like to be comparable to budget. So the actuals and the budget have to be on the same terminology. So we talk about responsibility centers. We can talk about them as cost centers, profit centers, revenue centers, or investment centers. So when we talk about responsibility centers, there's a cost center. They have responsibility for the expenses in their department. So a cost center manager would just have responsibility for expenses. Profit center would have both revenue and expense responsibility and responsibility for delivering a profit or a loss. And then the investment center is a little bit different because it adds in the concept of assets. So it's revenue, expenses, and assets. So we look at what we're hoping to accomplish. Cost centers, control over expenses. Profitability centers, profitability, both revenue and expenses. And investment centers, revenue, expenses, and then asset management. So when we think about the whole area of planning and control, it's really part of the whole management functions, right? So when you've taken courses in management, we talk about planning, staffing, directing, and controlling. So planning and controlling are a big part of what goes on in the management accounting world. So budgets are put in place because it helps us to give people a plan, but it also helps us to control how they're doing against expectations. And what the responsibility centers allows us to do is to delegate it at lower levels of responsibility. So it's not just senior managers who have responsibility and have some influence over the direction of the organization. It's people at every level of the organization. So when we talk about using budgets, we use budgets to control operations. We compare the actual with the planned objectives. And if we're achieving objectives, then that's favorable. If we're not achieving objectives, that's unfavorable. And we'd modify our future plans or take corrective action. So here's a possible frequency. Okay, this is just an example. Every organization is going to be a little bit different. Sometimes you can look at sales on a daily basis, sometimes weekly, sometimes monthly. It really depends on the need of the organization and the variability of things. But what this gives you is a sense of thinking about when you structure a budget and control reporting system, name of the report, how often you want it, the purpose of it, and who's going to receive it. Okay, so here's examples of things that might happen. So income statement, which is the overall picture, monthly and quarterly, top senior managers, and determine income objectives are being met. Something like selling expenses, monthly, controlling expenses, the sales manager. Right, so you get the general idea that there are different needs in the organization, and with technology, we can accommodate those various needs. And the goal would be to have everybody participating, everybody having responsibility and input into things they have control over. And that really leads us into the next topic here, which is called open book management. So open book management is something that is not widely used, but I think a very interesting topic, because what it is about is to get everybody in the organization engaged in understanding the financial aspect of the business. And there are several good reasons as to why you'd want that to happen. First of all, the financial results of organizations are very important. You know, last week we talked about the balanced scorecard and the 4 dimensions of organizations: financial, customers, employees or learning and growth, and internal business processes. And so getting people engaged and understanding the financial results is very important. And so open book management takes that approach a step further by actually training all employees on how to understand the financial results, and then seeing how their work is aligned to it, so that they can see where they can influence it, where they can improve it, and so forth. So the first link I have here just gives a brief definition of what open book management is. So read through this, a short read, and it'll give you information about what is open book management, what information is shared in open book management, what insights can we get from financial information, the effective employee engagement. So a lot of key things here. And then there's 2 videos here which I'd like you to watch: Introduction to the Great Game of Business and Open Book Management, and then Knowing and Teaching the Rules. Okay, these are both about 15 minutes long, but will really give you a good sense. And the final video is a short 11-minute video that goes through an example of what happens, or what might happen if it's implemented. So, so please read the first link and then watch these short videos, and that will allow you to participate in a meaningful way in the discussion board conversation this week. Okay, so as I mentioned, the agenda this week is to go through the materials on responsibility accounting and open book management, complete the graded assignment on responsibility centers, and then participate in the discussion board. So open book management discussion board is, what is open book management, sometimes called the great game of business? What is necessary for open book management to be successfully implemented? What are the benefits an organization may derive, and what are the obstacles that prevent many organizations from implementing open book management? All right, so that is that's the game plan for the week of April 13th. Again, if there's anything I can do to assist you with this course or anything else at MCPHS University, please email me, and please stay safe.